My first question is that there's a little bit of a controversy now whether therapy is a good thing or it's not a good thing, meaning that there's, and to emphasis on that, there's a good therapist that can help you actually. But when people say therapy is not a good thing, they're referring to the fact that there are some therapists that are not here to help you. So how does one, since you are a therapist, how does one prevent themselves or qualify or make sure that they find the right therapist and that they don't bump into this question of whether therapy is good or not?
Yes, first of all, welcome, Ellie. It's
Yeah,
a pleasure to be
thanks
here.
for having me here.
Yeah, you're doing great work, especially of opening the vulnerability. And the way I like to say it is that we're all surviving the same world together. We're
Yeah,
all in the same world. We're
yeah,
all surviving it together, so might as well supporting each other.
correct.
And being vulnerable and sharing how you feel is a great way of supporting each other
Right.
and humanizing our experience in this human world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to get to your question, so therapy is a big word, you know, and it keeps on changing. If I believe therapy is good, definitely. I mean,
Right.
I'm practicing it. Um, yeah, so remind me, your question was,
How one can make sure that when they sign up for therapy, that this person is actually moving them in the right direction and not backwards.
yeah. So personally with clients, I always open the discussion, you know, that I'm always happy for feedback and always want to hear feedback,
Oh, okay.
you know, how the sessions are going and whether they're improving or not. So ultimately, the best one to answer this question is the client themselves.
Ah,
I would say first to give it a chance, especially
right,
when you're new to therapy, give it a chance, a couple of sessions. But then, like, to ask yourself, what is it I want to accomplish in therapy?
right,
And do I make progress towards that goal? Everyone has different goals to reach, but evaluating, do I make progress on my goal? And if not, bring it up with your therapist.
right.
And if you feel your therapist is open and gives you a satisfied answer and it makes sense for you,
Yeah.
then you go further. But if something in you tells you it doesn't feel right, trust yourself.
Wow.
Discuss it with a friend. Discuss it.
Right.
Always trust yourself. And if the therapist is defensive or that's a red flag, like you should be able to discuss it with a therapist
Right.
and to come to understanding whether it's working or not.
Wow. That's very, very clear. Basically, in other words, you take the responsibility on um, either being in touch with your therapist and being honest with them, but also ultimately checking in if it works for you
Right.
or not.
Correct.
Another question that I had a lot on WhatsApp, like literally hundreds of people asked, which by the way, if you want to join our WhatsApp community, the link is in the description. Um, they asked about the prices, and
Yeah.
I tried helping people by telling them two things, which even I wasn't clearly aware. But number one, that there's insurance that pays,
Hmm.
and number two, that there is certain organizations that pay, which I'm going to try to put also in the description of this podcast and the description, so if somebody wants to sign up. But for those asking about the price, how do you feel about the pricing? I know my personal opinion. I'll say it briefly, that I think that it is, you gotta pay a price for somebody to carry the weight of what you're sharing. So it's always, and then again, I also think that there's a point where everybody finds what's important for them. So meaning, like you can't find the money for the therapist, but you find money for your cigarettes or whatever it is, right? So everybody finds what's important to them and what's urgent. So obviously, if you don't find the money for it, it's not urgent. But then again, people say legit that they have a big family and it's either pants for their children or a therapist. So what would you say to these people? And if you can share perhaps something that people can use that when they don't have money, or if there is a system, a program, or organization.
Correct. So there is today's day. There's many good clinics
Mm-hmm.
here in Muncie. There's a couple of clinics, many good clinics with good therapists. You know, they have good supervision, even though they're starting out. But there's good supervision and they're good clinics, which is covered by insurance.
Yeah.
You can find private transfer a therapist for insurance, but it's harder.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then, if someone can afford to pay and chooses to pay, there's definitely a big value in it. You can see it as it's so expensive, but think about it. The therapist has invested years and years of schooling and
Yeah.
their own therapy and supervision. You're sitting here with the hour of the therapist,
Yeah.
but it's years of experience
Wow.
and it takes work. It's not like it's It takes work to get there
Mental
and
space.
to continue mental space, and it takes a lot. So I believe you definitely, with a good therapist, you get your money's worth.
Right.
So it's a personal choice, but as you're saying, it's investing in yourself, pays off.
Yeah.
And it's choosing how you want to invest in yourself. But I believe therapy is definitely a good way.
Right. Wow, that's fascinating. So I had on my podcast, interestingly, I had a lot of people, like different coaches, entrepreneurs, healers, stuff like that. But I never had an actual therapist, like
Hmm.
what your title is, LMSW or
LCSW, licensed
LCSW,
clinical
which
social
stands
worker.
for what?
Licensed clinical social worker.
Okay. And what does that entail?
Yeah, so
So
basically
basically, this
once...
is the introduction. I have here Harav Nuchem Wosner, and I'm very Wosner, and I'm very excited. A Chassidish man, we chose to speak in English. Yiddish ook. And for those who want to know or want to get in touch, so what does your title stand for? What does your title mean? And then a little bit like how you got into it.
Yeah, beautiful. So the title is simple. So once you go to school to have become your master's in social work,
Okay.
once you finish school, you can go for your license, which makes you a licensed master social worker.
Mm-hmm.
Then you need 3 years, which includes a couple thousand hours of clinical work with supervision.
Mm.
So basically, just like a doctor does intern, does residency in a hospital. So you work in a clinic or in a clinical setting with supervision, and that gives you the shimmish, so to say,
Yeah.
like to give you the experience, and then you can go for the next license, which is a licensed clinical social worker,
Oh wow.
which basically that you're proved to be to sit one-on-one with people,
Uh-huh.
and you've done your hours of getting your knowledge and your experience in clinical work, which is important.
Right. And how did you get into this? If you want to go into depth, you can go into depth. But if I want to basically, the point of my question is, what made you curious to go to school to learn this skill and to actually help people?
Yeah, so I was always curious about understanding people and helping people and understanding psychology, which I later understood that it was an effort to help myself, basically.
Right. Yep.
You think by helping others, but it was a deeper desire to help myself and to understand, what's going on with myself,
Yeah.
which was a byproduct.
Mm-hmm.
So, just an interesting story I had as a kid. Probably like 8, I was in the country playing with another boy, with a neighbor, and he told me that his brother-in-law in New York, I lived in Montreal, was
Mm-hmm.
in country in Canada, is going to school for psychology. And me as an innocent kid, I said, what is a psychologist?
Yeah.
And he tells me that just like there's a doctor for physical, there's like a doctor for emotions.
Wow.
And I was blown away by it. I've never heard of such a
Right.
thing.
Right. Yeah.
And it made me very curious. And whatever I was able to put my hand on, whether it was the Malice, if you remember, they were the first one,
Yeah.
I think, publishing about mental health, or any Chinuch tapes, Sean Bice tapes, like whatever I got my hand on. And then when I had a chance, after my chassan, I went to school and then later to graduate school.
So it was like certain for you that this is what you're doing.
Wasn't certain, but I had a chance to go to school. I jumped an opportunity because I liked it, and it became more and more certain.
Right.
But just to finish that story, interesting thing, the first day I arrived to graduate school, one of my professors tells me that his in-laws lives in Montreal. And I was like, wait a minute, your dad brother-in-law
No.
that was told is
Wow.
going to school for psychology.
Yeah. Nice.
So I came like full circle.
Exactly. That's beautiful. Right. Oh, so you went to school in Montreal?
No, so I went in New York,
Oh.
graduate school, undergraduate I did in Montreal, and then went to New York. I still lived in Montreal at the time, and I traveled every week back and forth
Oh, really?
for school, yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. So, it's an inspiring, it's a nice journey. And then I'm curious. I want to talk about problems because
Yeah,
we're in a world where people are talking about mental health problems.
yeah.
I, for one, felt victim to my own story. And I heard one of the most fascinating quotes yesterday, which is, if you think that somebody messed up your life, you are right. That somebody is you.
I like that.
So take the responsibility. And that's what I keep on noticing about myself again and again and again. It's not my upbringing, it's not my family. It's really me that creates now a story out of all of it, and chooses whether I want to be the victim, whether I can be successful in business, whether I can be successful in shidduchim with girls and whatever. So I learned that problems for most of us is really a self-made thing. Then again, at a certain point, these problems take us over, which I believe that's when you need somebody to pull you out of the mud. You know what I'm saying? You get dirty once, twice, that's okay. But if you're deep inside, you need a hand to pull you out.
Yeah.
And I think that mentally we have the same situation. You get dirty here and there, you fall a little bit, that's okay. But if you fall deep and at a certain point you're way too lazy to get out of bed, way unsuccessful to a point where you're not making money to cover your monthly budget, unsuccessful to a point where your marriage is falling apart or you can't seem to get a relationship, at this point you need a lending hand, and therapy will unwrap all these blockages that you built around yourself and go straight to the point to discover who is the real you over here,
Yeah. You brought up a few good points. First, I want to say about the victimhood, that it's a misconception that sometimes that people have resistance to therapy because you become the victim and you blame everyone, which unfortunately could sometimes happen. But good therapy, that's definitely not the goal. The goal is to take you out of victimhood.
Correct.
And to teach you that you're not a victim and how to take your experience and make the best out of it and grow from it.
Right.
And the goal is definitely not to blame anyone, parents or anyone. The goal is to heal from it, give space for your experience and heal from it, and then move on, and then even holding space for your parents and helping your parents.
Correct.
So the goal is definitely is to come out of victimhood. And that's how you keep on growing.
Right. So for me personally, the first time I went for therapy was a year ago. It was summer, and there was like way too many things happening for me. So Michal Schnitzler passed away, so that was introduced me to grief and to inner child, and his passing brought up everything that ever hurt me came up at that point. There was, I think, me like becoming super famous like one day to another, so I had to like switch lifestyles. Like I would go out with my family and I would have like 7 people come over, and if they're respectful, that's one thing, but if they're disrespectful, it's like, especially for inner child, it's like, what's happening here? Why don't I have my space?
Right.
I had a few, dating didn't work out for me, a few things. It was like everything came crashing down to the point where I was just really miserable, and I feel like all the signals started going off. I heard the saying, like, anxiety is like a fire alarm. It's here to warn you of something, and that's literally what happened to me. Like my signal started going off that, Ellie, you must find help. And through therapy, I was able to become confident with my career, understand myself in the process of grief, rebuild myself in the process of relationships, become more secure and independent with myself. Essentially, this podcast, if anybody's ever going to ask me whether they should do therapy or not, I'm just going to send them this podcast because this is the goal that I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to explain to you my story and to hear how it helped, and then you can hear from a licensed therapist ideas and concepts. Nobody's here to convince you to go to therapy. It's not a sales pitch. I asked him to meet him. He didn't ask me to meet. But I understand what it did for me, and I also understand that one step after me feeling the way I felt a year ago was literally being suicidal, which meant that my life would have felt, and at certain points felt, meaningless. And we're not looking to get there. So I want to go from meaningless to meaningful, which is how I feel right now. I feel confident. I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I very much love Michal Schnitzler, but it doesn't affect me on a day-to-day basis, although sometimes I'll randomly very much miss him, and it will put me into a zone maybe. I feel like I can conquer everything, and I feel like I'm independent, an independent human being. I'm not anxious. I don't have fear on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes I have an anxious day maybe, or an anxious moment, but at least I live free. I live free to enjoy the world. And that's what happens with me when I get depressed. The number one thing that bothers me is like, I really want to enjoy life. I know what enjoying life feels like. So let's understand, if somebody does sign up for therapy, what is the process for them? Because most people haven't gone to therapy. That's the statistics, the facts. So I'm curious if you can talk about it. What happens? Walk me through, if I was never by a therapist, what the experience would be like.
Beautiful. So life can be overwhelming at times, and it helps to have someone, to help you sort out things and help you to cope with things, make sense out of things, and see how to cope with stuff. So a therapy that I use a lot is called IFS, which stands for Internal Family System.
Yeah.
Which basically means that there's many parts in you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a family in you, internal family. There's many
Yeah.
parts in you, and what happens is that all the parts are conflicting with each other, and they're fighting with each other, and it gets confusing, and it becomes chaotic.
Okay.
Because part of me is pulling here, part of me is pulling here, and I don't know like which one is real and which one do I want, and one is a conflict of the other.
And where's it pulling and when? Like, meaning if I want to make a decision in life,
Yeah.
or if I want to do something.
It's an example, making a decision in life, or
So now one part is telling me to go do it, the other part is telling me, no, you can't do
Other
it.
can't
One
do
part
it.
is shaming me, giving me fear.
Exactly.
Okay.
Shame, guilt, fear, or let's say addiction, like you don't want to do something, but part of me wants to do it. And
Yes,
it's like,
absolutely.
what part of
Right.
me wants, what part of me don't want,
Right.
doesn't want. So with the process, first we identify all the parts. We give space for all the parts. It's like,
Right.
okay, this part is saying this part is saying this.
Okay.
And then like we understand which part is like a protective part. Some parts are just protecting you from a very young age to make
And
sure
what
you're
part
safe.
actually does what? When you say part, this part does this. Part is referring to a person. Part is referring to a feeling.
Part of the person, which is usually combined with feelings. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's part of the person. So, and for example, protective parts. So, for example, anxiety and depression are usually protective parts.
Ah.
Like I'm anxious to go somewhere.
Right.
Let's say I have social anxiety. So I'm anxious to go to that place because once as a child,
Yeah.
I was very shamed in public.
So how can you walk me through it? Like I feel anxious to go away for Shabbos. I love
Yeah.
being home for Shabbos.
Okay, so you want to walk through personal or like?
Yeah, get personal, gesundheit.
No, just saying if you want to.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the fear? What's the fear that?
The fear is that I will be there and I won't feel comfortable. I always say this. My fear is the feeling. Most of our fears is a feeling. We're not afraid of actually doing something. Like I'm okay to jump out of a plane, right? To go, what's it called? Skydiving.
Right.
But I'm afraid of the feeling. What happens if I jump and I feel like I'm dying? I don't want to, I'm afraid of the feeling.
Yeah, so what's going to happen when you arrive there? What's going to happen when you're going to be
Correct. So
uncomfortable?
exactly. I arrive there, I'm uncomfortable, and it's Shabbos. You can't do anything, right? You can't leave. You can't use your phone. You're
So
in somebody
let's play
else's
out.
house.
Like what's the worst that's going to happen?
So I'm telling you, I can't leave if I want to leave, number one. I can't distract myself with my phone or anything like that.
Right.
I can't even go into my own bed for comfort, if I want to just ignore everything. I can't eat my food that I want to eat, which I have at home. I probably won't have the exact people that I have at home. And the seventh thing is, I probably won't be able to have the comfort, the feeling of I'm surrounded with the right people and I can, just the feelings overall.
Good. So think of the peak experience, meaning like the worst minute, like when everything is crashing together, like whenever it's Friday night or whenever, like, and like it's too much from all sides.
Yeah.
How does that feel? Like the peak moment, like what's the feeling? Is it like panic?
It's a feeling
Is it
of
like
panic. I was just going to say absolute panic.
panic? Okay.
Panic attack.
Okay.
And I just want to run away from there.
Good. So if you think about the panic, what is the panic?
The panic is fear.
Fear. Fear of
That I'm not okay.
that not okay, meaning physically, emotionally.
Yeah. Emotionally.
Emotionally, okay. So can you hold space for that panic? Can you hold space that okay? It's panic is extreme fear. So it plays out. It's like I'm panicking. It's like okay. Can you see that part of me is now panicking and hold space for that panic?
Yeah. I can hold space of that panic.
Right, right. So the issue is usually that we never learn to hold space for the panic. We'll do many steps not to get to that panic
Yeah.
because at a young age I've trained myself that it's the worst thing to get to that panic feeling.
Correct.
But in therapy we can learn to hold space for that panic, and even though this panic comes, not to be so afraid of it, and then it
Right.
passes.
Wow.
And then it passes. So this is the first part of, because the panic protects you. It protects you, your anxiety protects you from feeling the panic. But then I would go back, like what that panic reminds you of, like where you had that in your childhood, or like what that brings back, that your system got trained that I can't be in this scenario.
Right. I understand. Wow. I know the opposite of it, that I just want to feel comfortable and happy, and I would say most of all safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think to myself, in my worst scenarios of anxiety, I always thought to myself that if I travel on a bus, that this bus has a doctor and a cop and a chavayram and a shamram and whatever. Like if this bus has everything in it, then I would feel safe.
Yeah.
But if not, then I don't feel safe, because wherever I go, I'm not safe. And I worked very hard to build up this safety within myself.
Yeah. So safety goes on many levels. That's safety on the surface, which we can work with.
So why do so many people not feel safe? And how does one build safety?
Correct. So safety goes on many levels. Meaning, what is safety?
I think safety is a certain calmness. Safety is knowing that everything will be okay.
Correct.
Belief in Hashem and God, but I don't think that safety applies to most people today's days. It's more an ignorance or ignoring problems.
Because most people live in
That
survival these days.
Correct.
But true safety is being fully comfortable with yourself and fully comfortable in this moment.
Right.
So there's many levels to it. There's basic safety, physical safety, emotional safety. But then comes deeper safety of like, am I truly satisfied with myself and feel okay with myself? And as you mentioned, like the ultimate level is only through a minimum betachin, because
Right.
no one can really give you that safety.
Right.
Even with the healthiest parents, with the healthiest upbringing, there's still going to be like, am I safe?
Mm-hmm.
And it boils down to trust Hashem fully. And there's levels and levels of it. But we're always looking for that safety,
Right.
and yearning for it. And there's many levels to work out to get to deeper and deeper safety. That's
What's a common way to work out? What's one way that an average person can work on feeling safe with themselves, so wherever they go and whatever they do, they feel safe?
right. So in therapy, I would start with what makes you unsafe, and defining the parts that makes you unsafe and giving space for it and healing it. But then the deeper parts, the best tool is tefillah. It's
Wow.
because tefillah is a personal connection to Hashem.
And it's
And-
surrendering. You're
and
like
it's surrendering.
showing that.
It's bittul, it's surrendering.
Right.
So if I can always talk to Hashem, like
Right.
I'm safe.
Right. What does a therapist feel when they have a problem? Does that make you feel like a failure? Like that, here I am helping people mentally, but I'm not doing well today mentally or emotionally?
No, meaning I'm human just as everyone else. And for most of my years, I was in therapy myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not about being perfect, because no one is perfect, and perfection doesn't exist on this world, because this world is a journey.
Right.
So when I have challenges, that's part of my journey, and I obviously have my ways to how I deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes better and sometimes harder, but that's my journey. So it's not like I'm the perfect person. That's why I can declare myself and help others. It doesn't work that way. I have my journey, and at the same time that I have my journey, I can hold space for your journey. It's not a contradiction.
Right.
We're all journeying together.
And how do you see clients when you're having a very bad day and now you have to listen to their bad day?
Right. So it's.
I'm just trying to get into interesting questions
Yeah,
that I think people
of
would
course, I don't mind. So obviously, I would try to center myself before the session the best I can, and it's I can learn to separate both.
Wow.
You know, to
Right.
leave.
This is your work. At the end of the day, it's what you enjoy.
End of the day, it's work.
I'm relating because if I'm having a bad day, I can also see myself still going on to a Zoom meeting for Weber Media and kind of push it through, you know, like still get what I need, give what I need to give.
Yeah, I can learn to,
So you
to
basically-
separate, but at the same time to hold space for my experience.
Uh-huh.
I like to take deep breaths, just like I hold space for the client's
Right.
experience.
You're going through something
I'm going
now.
through, and the client doesn't have to know it, but
Right.
I can be vulnerable. It's not an issue.
Right.
It's just like it doesn't pay to hear my issues,
Yeah.
but I can breathe
Right.
and hold space for my stuff. The harder work is with your own people, with my own family. You know,
Right.
there you can't separate because it's not meant to separate.
Right.
So when having a bad day, like what to do there?
Do you find it that some of your clients are literally coming just to talk and the conversation is very positive versus coming here to solve problems and to continue to heal?
Just to talk, meaning, well, our clients are more talkative, but usually when a client comes, they come to
Yes, they have
to
something.
improve themselves.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes clients use talking as a coping mechanism. They'll talk,
Ah,
but it's actually a way of staying stuck in the head
Right.
and resisting the feeling. And when I noticed that, I would try to slow them down. It's like, okay, take a deep breath. What do you feel?
Right.
So, yeah.
Nice. That's powerful. I like that.
We have many coping mechanisms. So our system is very smart to figure out, you know, how to cope with stuff and
Right.
escape. And
Yeah, I feel that when people are calm in general and they're safe, then everything else in their life works out.
yeah,
It's a very simple like shift that you have to take.
true.
And it's not easy. I'm saying it's not easy because I've been in certain scenarios in my life where I knew that the simple shift and be secure and mindful and talk to Hashem, I knew that it doesn't work.
So the starting point of that is always acceptance.
Right.
And acceptance always starts in this moment.
Right.
Can I accept exactly how I feel, my circumstance, my outside circumstances,
Even
my
though I
inside
hate it.
feelings, even though I hate it, even though I hate it
Right.
with passion?
Right.
Can I accept this is how I feel in this moment? This is
Right.
how I am at this moment.
Right.
And from there, you can grow. You can,
Right.
because if you're fighting your moment, it's like, no, I need to be like this. I need to
Right.
feel like this. Then you're fighting with something.
Right.
The minute you're fighting with something, you're in conflict with yourself.
Right. And I heard you say a very interesting thing. You said that unfortunately we only heal when we are in pain and we go through pain.
Yeah.
So most
Most
people,
of the time.
yeah, most people don't really even grasp this because I don't think they reach the level of pain. They're still in the ignorance of stuff, just like I've been. So that's why I'm saying it. Like I've ignored my entire life until I was 24, and then it kind of crashed. It was like, oh, this doesn't make sense anymore. I can't be living this way,
Yeah.
just ignoring, pushing down, suppressing. I said no more. But why is it that why is it that pain technically is so powerful, and that people wait until the pain hits?
Yeah. So by default, we either run towards pleasure or we run away from pain.
Mm-hmm.
By default, as humans. So if life goes smooth, you know, why shake up things? Why change things? Why? And unfortunately, or fortunately, that's how Hashem designed the world. That when He wants to shake you, or He sees it's time for you to change,
Mm-hmm.
then He'll make it so painful. It becomes like so pressing that you have no choice of looking at it and finding a way to breaking out of it.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And sometimes the person needs a big shift, and only
Right.
like a bigger squeeze, a
Right.
bigger pain will force you out of it. That's how it works. Not that there has to be. We can learn to appreciate life and connect to Hashem and appreciate yourself and grow from there and grow through positivity.
Right.
I'm not saying it has to be through pain, but often that's how
Right.
it starts.
Do you feel like you can also diagnose people? Like, if somebody calls you, they're not sure what they need, how they need it.
Well, it's part of my training to diagnose according to the DSM, the psychological terms. Although I don't like to put people in that boxes, so to say, because I think people are much more comprehensive than that, are much bigger than that. I mean, it helps to like define and understand, in terms of treatment, what this person is suffering and how to set up the treatment. But I wouldn't put in the person in the box of a diagnosis, so to say,
Right.
because the person is much more than his
Right.
diagnosis.
Where does victimhood even come from? Which is something that so many people struggle. Like they're a victim to something, except instead of realizing that they're just a free human being to be whatever they want, whenever they want, and as you mentioned, like people evolve and continue to grow.
Yeah. So I think it's much easier to blame others than take responsibility.
Well,
It's way easier. Um, Unfortunately, some therapists buy into that, of like too much victimizing um, but it's changing. So it's to learn that, yes, I can take responsibility. I don't have to blame someone. I can look at myself and, okay, so what is not working in my life?
yeah,
Let's say I don't blame anyone, and neither myself. It's
yeah,
not about blaming yourself neither. It's like, okay, so, but what's happening and what can I take responsibility? Meaning, responsibility is simple. The first step is, what can I honestly look at?
yeah,
I can be honest. This is what I'm struggling with.
right.
It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how can I slowly change it?
Right. So you're saying the acceptance part is the resistance part. Like people, they have a difficulty seeing that,
Yeah.
oh, perhaps my life
Yeah.
is not exactly where it
Yeah.
can be or should be.
And also people are trained like that, unfortunately. Like if your parents kept on blaming you or whoever it was, if you got the message, even if they didn't mean it,
Mm-hmm.
but if you got the message as a child that I'm blamed, that I'm not good, I'm not good.
Yeah.
So I'm learned, okay, someone has to be at blame. So if it's not,
Ah.
as a child, I only blame myself. Now I'm an adult, I'm
Right.
already smart, it's your
Right.
fault.
I love that you said that because everything leads back to our upbringing, which is very hard for people to see because they so blocked it out and they try to ignore it. So when you tell them it goes back to your upbringing, they're like, "Oh, don't bring it up again," and I don't want it to affect me. It was funny. I was walking at the beach this morning, and I do a 3-mile walk every day. I love doing it in the morning because I'm full of energy. At night I just survive the walk. But so it was a good walk, and I hear this mother is talking to her child, and the child tells the mother, like the mother is saying something about you can't do this, and the kid just goes, "Quit it," you know.
Quit it.
And yeah, and the mother is like, you're talking about a 6, 7-year-old child, maybe 5 even. And the mother says, you can't talk that way. And I'm thinking to myself, where did the kid get that language if not from the mother?
Right.
Meaning that when the kid tried to express himself, the mother told the kid, quit it. So many things in our lives that we are using to cope or things that are holding us back. I often say, if people want to understand how our upbringing affects how we are as adults, think about that family that doesn't have any money, but they're doing very nice shidduchim. Every shidduch is at the age of 19 in that family. And then vice versa. Think about that family that has plenty of money, but shidduchim, there's no shidduchim over there. That's what a family system really is.
Right.
Because in their heads, shidduchim geht mir geht, Geld nicht. For the andere family, Geld geht ihm geht, but shidduchim nicht. So it's always how we are brought up with certain things. And dezelfde Sache is ook het. If we zoom in on Yiddishkeit, is dezelfde Sache. In certain families, I'm gewinn sehr streng. So everything became a battle. Am I doing it right or am I doing it wrong? Am I getting schar for this or am I doing an avaira?
Yeah.
And certain families had it more chilled, easygoing, more accepting, more loving and open, so that they now grow up to be adults and they're very independent, or they have a very positive view of going to shul and doing certain
Correct.
things.
It's your training ground, your training system. So talking about upbringing, it's how number one is how Hashem designed the world, and for a reason. You know, we are as humans, no animals like that. You see a
Right.
baby deer, like he's, I don't know how many, one day, and he's running, I don't know
Right.
exactly, but only humans, like the first couple of years, are fully dependent of their parents.
Right.
Physically, emotionally, psychologically, on all levels. Which makes us very vulnerable, extremely vulnerable. And obviously Hashem designed that for a reason, because every person has their mission meaning their life is their mission.
Right.
Their life journey is their mission. And Hashem designs the recipe for every person how to get to their mission, how to get to their life journey, to their life. And that's by sending down to this specific family, you know, this is your training ground.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to get. And from this, you're going to have to break out.
Right.
Meaning, find yourself in this. Obviously, it's the parents' job to do the best job they can.
Right.
But ultimately, it's the kids, when the kid becomes a grown-up, to become a grown-up, meaning that I recognize what my parents gave me and what did that train me.
No.
So it's not about sort of looking negatively at the upbringing. It's your DNA. It's what got you till here, and it's your job to take what got you till here and take it further.
Right. Wow, that's amazing. I remember, I love what you just said. I remember for a while I was very upset about my upbringing, and I had this coach that told me, like, start making a list of the positive things, because at the end of the day you're a little bit stuck in your head and you're just seeing the negatives of everything. But really, like, there's also positive stuff. There's positive things in your upbringing, even though it wasn't perfect. But I think this awareness that people are feeling today, the next thing that it leads them to say is that, wow, I'm now noticing how careful I have to be with my children. Like, I spent Shabbos with a friend, a close friend of mine, and he went through his own journey, a beautiful journey, by the way, how he took responsibility and how he became so independent and was even able to live alone, and how he beat his anxiety and became successful. He has a very nice journey, but he was telling me, you know what I realized after all of this? That how sensitive it is to raise a child. And I think that in part is something that people really don't pay enough attention to.
Yeah, so we as humans are very sensitive and very fragile.
Yeah.
So it helps, to hold space for your child. The best thing what works is to be authentic, to be real, because all kid wants is like real love, real connection.
Yeah.
And it's by being real with them. You can be vulnerable with them and be real and give them space for their experience.
Right.
The more you give space for your experience, you can give space for their experience and just accept them for who they are.
Right.
Like, it's not about being a perfect parent. No parent is perfect.
Right.
But accept yourself and accept your kid for who he is and hold space for his experience.
Right.
But ultimately, the parents also need to remember that just like I have my journey, my kids will have their journey. And there's nothing I can do to make their journey a perfect journey.
Right.
I can
no matter what they choose.
I can hold space for their journey.
Right.
But your parents have their journey, I have my journey, and the kids have their journey. Ultimately, every individual has their journey. I can do my best to hold space for it and to embrace and bring out the positivity in their journey.
Wow.
But ultimately, everyone has their journey, right?
Right. It's very, very, very beautifully said about how to be sensitive towards them, but also allow them and understand that at the end of the day, you won't be able to control, even though you are the best parent. They have a journey that they have to fulfill.
And you won't do them good if you try to control their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's something that in our community, personally, I think that changed.
Changing.
Changing. They say today that like OTD, which used to stand for Of the Derech, now stands for On the Derech.
Right.
The same OTD. And I think that the acceptance and the love that we have, I just watched like a drusha from Shabbos Karaftuni, and all the drushas over there talk about this concept of how people should be towards their children. And I'm glad to say that I have, I think, the most supportive parents that I could have asked for. They're so supportive of my journey and my podcast and my vlogs and everything I do with my company, Where We Media, where we provide social media management for companies. Like, they've always been here to support me and tell me, yeah, Ellie, you got this, and they're always on the lookout for clients. You know, my
Oh,
my
wow.
father brings me clients, my mother brought me clients. Like they all try
Proud
to,
parents.
yeah, like
Beautiful.
really, really great parents. And at the same time, they also notice that there's certain things maybe that they didn't do right, and they try to do it right. You know, like I have a brother that's 20 years younger than me, from the same parents, and they treat him different in a lot of ways. You know, like if he cries, they'll allow him to cry, versus a lot of other parents that, you know, when their kid cries, you know, zashtil, they make me a headache. You know,
Right.
they don't allow their kids to fully express. So they became a lot better parents for themselves.
Beautiful.
And that actually inspires me. It tells me that perhaps, wow, you know what? I think I'm also ready. Like I can see the sensitivity towards myself. Now I can see the sensitivity towards other people, towards my own children, and how to treat them.
Definitely.
And to understand that if I'm having a very bad day, then to remove myself from
Also, if you
their-
think about it, that by doing your work, you're also
Yeah.
helping them. Because you're, by holding space for yourself,
Right.
you allow them to hold space for themselves and to improve them.
Right. Do you find that I see it a lot that like parents really project everything on their children, everything that they're feeling. You know, when they're telling their children shame on you, really they're feeling shame
Right.
on themselves.
Kids are a big reflection. So kids especially,
Yeah.
they're a very deep mirror. That's why it's so sometimes very hard to face.
Yeah.
Because what your kid plays out is, if you see it, it's usually something in you.
Wow.
It's usually something in you, and you'll see when a person's changing, and and comes in like to their kids with good intention and with positive feelings.
Right.
The kids feel it immediately, and
Right.
they immediately match your vibration.
Right.
So, which means, don't blame your kid for being in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Put yourself in a good mood,
Right.
and you'll see how your kid will become in a good mood too.
Wow. That's super powerful. I'm curious because I was having a conversation with somebody, and we were talking about, you know, ugefur in the children. So I said every ugefur in a child comes from a gefur in a home, from a gefur in a tata. So meaning every child that you're saying is not according to your way, is coming from a child, from a father. Every child that's not on the way is coming from a father that is on the way. And I think that that's a very big misconception.
Right.
Probably the reason why your child is not on the right way is probably because you weren't on the right way. Now it comes in different shapes and sizes.
Yeah. If the father can't stand the child, then it's the father's job. It's like, why can't, it's my child. What part of me can't stand this child? What is he triggering in me?
Right.
Is he expressing something that deep down I would want to express too, but I'm not ready to?
Right.
And he has the guts to express it, or to explore it, or
Right.
to bring out that flavor in life that maybe I want to bring out, but I don't know how, or I'm afraid
Right.
to, and maybe I need to face it. Or is it parts that I'm in conflict with myself
Right.
that comes out and I have an issue facing?
Uh-huh. And these thousands of teens that we're seeing today that are choosing a different path, or they're more or less religious, what is this coming from?
It's coming from finding themselves. So
Right. So in a sense, is it a good thing, or is it just pure bad?
no, it's
You
not
know?
about good or bad. Everyone has their journey, and people go to many lengths to find themselves. And it's a good thing, you know, especially if you talk about teenage years. It's a time when it's meant to find yourself.
But they have so much uncertainty within their journey. At the end of the day, they're not comfortable. They feel like something is missing. I was talking to a girl the other week, and she was telling me how, she said, I'm not how I grew up, you know, originally. She's from Lakewood, so I'm not how I grew up. And she said, I'm also not comfortable with where I am. You know, now she wears pants and she doesn't keep Shabbos. And I tried telling her, look, you'll never be completely comfortable where you came from. That's in the past. And where you're going right now is trying to become something that's perhaps in the future. I said, don't become comfortable with those two ways. Become comfortable with your way.
Correct. And it takes uncertainty to get certain.
Oh, so that, to me, that's frightening. Even for myself, if I'm to choose a new way, I'm choosing my way. That's very scary.
It is frightening, but that's what builds you. It takes uncertainty to find certainty, meaning you have to sort through, okay, this is uncertain, but where do I find the certainty? If I just follow, okay, this is what I need to do is I was told, but it's not individualized. I'm not certain because I'm certain. But if I'm able to look at my uncertainties, then I can find my certainty.
Wow.
But it is a journey. It is a frightening process. But what I would say in today's days, we're fortunate that there are many people that can support you in your way. Like not only therapists, there's many mashpiyim and rabbanim today that's way more open-minded.
Right.
That can hold space for your experience and that can allow you to be uncertain
Right.
and that you can trust their advice, that they're not biased, that they're here to help you and help your figuring out your path.
Right.
So, Baruch Hashem, there are many mashpiyim today and people that...
Right. So I had a fascinating story that happened last week. I put out a few podcasts about mental health. And I had this one therapist reach out to me and tell me like, wow, you know, you're so amazing. You're so awesome. Your work is amazing. You're coming out and you're sharing and whatever. And then I noticed to myself, and then I just, you know, he sent me a photo of himself and I see the guys with a rekel and a hit and a beard and pious, I'm like, I felt like, wow, you know, you come from the community that in part I had resentment and you're giving me so many compliments. And he told me that he's part of a group of friends that do therapy, and he's a mental health professional. And I felt, and then we started talking, having conversations, how mental health is being, you know, he sent me a picture of, there was a mental health asifa with hundreds of rabbunim.
Right.
And he started telling me about how many rabbunim and chasidis are implementing these mental health precautions in their community and how widespread it's becoming. And so I started noticing, I had this huge awareness where I said, I was resenting part of my upbringing, part of the Frömmkeit, Yiddishkeit and stuff like that. But in reality, no, I'm on the same team as them. And then there's the ignorant people.
Right.
So Hasidus, Yiddishkeit, Frömmkeit, and the real Rabbunim and Rebbes support mental health. They know very well what it means.
Yeah.
They're seeing the uncertainty up close. And then there's people that are just ignorant.
We're all on the same team. So when I started out...
I'm saying for me, it was a big sigh of relief. Like, I'm not fighting anyone. I'm just part of something, you know? Because for a while, I was like, I have to run away. I have to bring awareness. But no, everything is on the right path. I became a lot more calmer with where our community as a whole is going.
Correct. So when I started out, I went to school, I could have counted my hand how many Yiddish-speaking therapists there was.
Oh, wow.
Literally.
How many years ago we're talking?
I graduated 2012, so I graduated. And
so you started this almost 20 years ago, you started this journey. It's crazy.
Yeah, and now we have like tens and hundreds.
Hundreds.
Of Yiddish-speaking therapists,
maybe even
men
thousands,
and women.
Yeah.
So it's definitely changing. It's changing big time, the awareness.
That's a good point. That's a good way to measure it. Yeah, beautiful.
Literally watch it improving like crazy.
Right. Okay.
But at the same time, to remember as I started that we're all one big community, and to remember that all Yidden are one, and we are supporting each other. And maybe people are still ignorant or like they don't understand, but it's okay. We can hold space for everyone.
Right.
And talking about Hasidus, I mean, it's important to connect to our roots, because in Hasidus meaning the teaching of Hasidus.
Yeah.
Hasidus can be looked at as there's a culture, it's a community, which is part of it, which has a lot of beautiful parts in it.
Right.
But the essence of Hasidus, which comes from the Baal Shem Tov, is that he gave certain teachings that the students took further, everyone in their direction.
Right.
But essentially is to find your personal connection to Hashem.
No matter what that looks like.
No matter what that looks like.
Wow.
And we have the ability to connect to it.
So what happened? So why are we in a judgmental place? Why is it that if the truth is I shouldn't say I don't feel that judged. I don't. I wear whatever I want. I do whatever I want. I mean, in healthy context, you know. But I also understand who my community is and what respect is also. But at the end of the day, there is a judgment, right? There is certain judgment. You know, especially if somebody's to do a bigger thing, like maybe not keep Shabbos or a girl wears pants or something, why is there so much judgment? Are people just not aware that we're all one and special?
Yeah, it comes from a few angles. Number one, it was a way of chinuch, of protecting the community, of like
Uh-huh.
putting certain boundaries, and it got interpreted as as I'm judging you, or you have to be a certain way, which obviously there's got to be boundaries, and it's got to be nothing stands without boundaries. But you always got to remember what the ikr and what the tuffle.
Yeah.
Yes, there's got to be certain boundaries, and things have to fit in. Obviously, it has to fit in with the Torah, and it has to be das Torah. And then, what is my personal connection to Yiddishkeit, and what is my personal connection to my kids, and to Hashem, and to my community? So forget sometimes what the ikr was the tuffle, like that. Essentially, it's all through achdus and through love. Is that the driving force, or am I stuck in my insecurities and trying to protect myself, and protect and afraid? So
and perhaps, I don't know, maybe today it is the driving force. You know what? I'll be very honest with you. I don't know. I started with a question, why do we have judgment? I don't know if we still have judgment. I don't know. It's rapidly changing.
It's definitely changing.
Rapidly changing. Like, you can see love and acceptance towards a child that is not. I can't remember which. I posted it on my status, this drusha from this, I'll say his name, Harav Meisels, and he's talking. You ever saw that drusha? I'll send it to you.
Not sure.
And he's talking about his own experience with a child. And he keeps on saying literally how he failed her to respect her for what she was doing, because everything she was doing in his mind was completely wrong.
Right.
But in fact, this kid was struggling, and it was his kid.
Yeah.
I think that changed. I think that in many ways there is
definitely changing,
acceptance.
And it starts by accepting ourselves.
Absolutely, right.
If you can't accept yourself, it's very hard to accept others. So
how is the older person accepting? This is the challenge that I have, because when I think about acceptance, I'm thinking about this: the 40-year-old, the 50-year-old, the 60-year-old to accept me. I want my grandfather to accept me for who I am, and he's 75. How does he come to awareness?
It's never too late. I have 40, 50-year-old to come here. Like
Really?
It's never too late. And sometimes kids are teaching you and forcing you together, and you have a look on your life, and it's like, okay, let me first accept who I am, where I am.
Right. Do you also do therapy for couples?
I used to do more couples. Now I do mainly individuals.
Meaning that struggle with...
Right. There are many good couple therapists out there.
Mm-hmm.
Today I do more individuals, but yeah, couple therapy is a very good thing.
Do you think people should go for couple therapy even though they don't have a problem? Like, if I'm happy with my spouse, should I come here and just prevent things before it's happening?
No, there's no challenges, and I don't see. It's more like finding ways how to improve your marriage. It doesn't have to be through therapy. But talking about therapy, people choose therapy in different ways, meaning question what your goals in therapy are. Some people like, okay, I have this issue and let me solve it, and I solved it. Like, it's under control, and now I move on. And some people choose to have continuous growth in their life. Some people choose through therapy, and some people choose through a rebbe, there's many different ways, but so you can choose it in different ways. Yeah,
sometimes I think to myself, like, if I would have a wife, I would be able to hold space for her and be there for her, and vice versa, she would be able to hold space. Do you think that a spouse relationship is crucial helps for mental health?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. Like, a good, healthy marriage as a team, like, if they're equal meaning like equally invested of supporting each other.
Right.
Equal doesn't mean like on pen and paper, okay, like I'm doing this, you have to do this, because then it's technical. It's like I'm fully invested in you, you're fully invested in me. It's a team. So number one, the kids will reflect tremendously on the kids. The kids will be healthy kids.
Right.
And it gives you everything. A healthy marriage is everything.
Right. And why do you think so many people today are not happy? I mean, we have like a 50% divorce rate, not in our community, but in the world.
Because you come into the marriage with wounds, and subconsciously you expect the other one to be a father, to be a mother.
Right.
Even though you're very aware of it, sometimes it will still happen on many subconscious levels. It takes a lot of work, personal work, to say, okay, like, whatever I didn't get from my parents is my job.
Yeah.
Obviously, my spouse can support me and give me love and support, but that deep feeling, like it's on you.
Right.
And not to project it on them and to blame them. It's like, take responsibility for yourself And two healthy people can make a beautiful marriage.
Right.
But when you come with big wounds, it's going to get triggered. The marriage is going to trigger everything.
All right. That's so true. Wow. Yeah. It's powerful. I often say, like, people talk about the shidduchim crisis, and I love saying that there is no shidduchim crisis because there's enough boys and there's enough girls.
Right.
But I do see that I'm somebody that reads a shidduch. I would say on average once a day I read a shidduch.
Wow.
And you'll be shocked by what I tell you, that 80 or 90% of the shidduchim that I read are a boy or a girl that's not even interested. They're not interested in the shidduch.
Wow.
It can be a perfect girl. It can be the amount of nonsense. Oh, she's 1 year older than me, 1 year younger, and they do this or they do that, or they just don't even answer me. Like, I read you a shidduch, all I asked is for your resume, and they go into a whole back and forth. So that means that something is wrong with this individual. It was never the shidduch.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you said at the other podcast, that it boils down to personal responsibility. It's like if you're not married, like, so have a look on your life. Like, what is resisting in your life?
Yeah.
That you're not there yet. Not in a blaming way, just of what I need to improve.
Right. For the past year, I personally removed myself from shidduchim. Legit. I mean, and I can tell you why. I didn't feel financially stable within my business, and now I do. I didn't feel that I had the proper communication skills and the communication skills within myself. Like, I didn't exactly know what I want, how I am. I didn't feel safe and secure with myself back then, which now I do feel. There were so many things where I knew that going into a relationship right now is just wrong, which now I feel a lot more confident with it. And even though that I'm confident right now to go into a relationship, I also understand and know that there is a lot of work to be done, but I'm still willing to take the leap of faith. Like, I'm still willing to jump in and say, okay, let's make it work together. Like, I'm not perfect.
Right.
And you are probably not going to be perfect, or maybe, yeah, that's up to the other person, right? But at least I have this awareness, this level of awareness and security within myself that I know it's going to be okay. I know that I got this. I know that I can be there for another person. I know that I'm mentally, emotionally healthy. I'm curious, one question that I had before already is, do you help people mentally or emotionally? I'm very curious, or does it work together?
I believe it works together. It definitely works together. How do you define mentally? Mentally, I guess, is more
the mind,
the thought process.
the thought process,
and then the emotions, and we need both. We need the mind and the heart. So it's on both levels. Sometimes people are more stuck in the emotional part, and sometimes people are more stuck in the mental part. But it's to balance both.
Right. What do you find that people struggle most with right now, on a day-to-day basis, from what you're seeing?
Yeah, that's a big question. But essentially is to find themselves, and hard to say most people, but right, everyone has their flavor, what they struggle, whether it's anxiety, depression, trauma, but it's to be in peace themselves and be aligned with their life.
Right.
On many levels. We come down to this world and we're living life.
Yeah.
And life is happening. It's
Right.
a question of how much you're aligned with it.
Right.
How much you become in peace with your process.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're all going for. And today's days, people are doing very deep healing that we didn't have the luxury to do before. We were busy surviving
Right.
after the war and everything. And now we can take a step back and do very deep healing.
Right. So what does deep healing look like?
Deep healing looks like being able to have an honest look on the deepest insecurities, the deepest dark places, so to say, like that I wouldn't want to go there.
Yeah.
Whether internally and externally.
Right.
And to have a look at it and to clean traumas. And being able to face everything, and then slowly, and then getting in touch with your intuition. Where we're very disconnected from our intuition. like you see like animals, for example, they're fully aligned with their intuition,
Yeah.
right? Like wherever they need to jump or wherever they're like everything just happens
Yeah.
sort of automatic.
They live in the moment.
They don't think
Yeah.
that's how animals are. Humans have a choice. We have a bechira. That's why we're not. It's not. Doesn't always happen natural, but we do have a natural part in us
Yeah.
that knows what's good for us,
Right.
and we're so trained to live from the head, meaning to think through life and to figure out life.
Right.
And okay, so it's always like, what's going to be my next step, and how I'm going to figure out life, and what the other person's going to think of me.
Wow.
But it's not like actually living.
No.
And actually living requires intuition, like what works for me, what do I want for myself, where do I want to go. So it takes trust. But since we're never trained to do that, we're petrified of like, because it's all judgmental. So what the other person thinks or how I judge myself, it's like, wait a minute, if I can take away all the judgments, what do I actually want?
Yeah.
And when it comes to decisions, you can take a deep breath. It's like, what feels right for me?
Yeah.
And it works out. You learn to trust your intuition.
Right.
So after doing the deep cleaning, or together with doing the deep cleaning, you can get in touch with your intuition and starting to live your journey.
Right. I love what you just said, because we're not just addressing problems here. We're addressing what, and I always love going there. The name of the podcast is Positivity.
Right.
And I love talking about the positives. The reason I'm doing this is not to expose the problems that we have in Klal Yisrael. The reason I'm doing this is literally for what you just shared. How when you get in touch with your intuition, you'll live the best, happiest life.
Right.
Everything will flow. You will enjoy. You will feel good on a day-to-day basis. You will be mentally clear.
Right.
You'll be there for your spouse, for your children, for your friends. Super powerful. I love this conversation that we had, that I think is going to help a lot of people understand the point of view of therapy, the point of view from a regular person. To finish it off, I'm curious, for somebody that's, we'll talk about depression and anxiety separately, but somebody that's going through depression, and maybe they don't want to go to a therapist yet, or they don't have the money or whatever. What's a couple of things that you walk through your clients day to day to get out of depression? What's something that this person can do now? A couple of things that they can do to move in the right direction.
From a technical perspective, exercise helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It helps for the brain. Eating right, sleeping right, going out, meeting people. From a technical perspective. But then there's also the part of depression is usually an indicator that something is not working in your life and you're not listening to it.
Wow.
And the way of your body and your system saying, like, I've had enough, I'm shutting down.
Right.
It's like, if you're not going to listen to me, like, I'm out of it.
Right. Wow.
So it's to start listening to yourself. Well, what is it I really want? It's not like, it doesn't mean I need to make drastic changes tomorrow, and it's never a good idea, like, make drastic changes unless, like, it's certain that from all sides you need to do it. But it's first to give space for it. It's like, what is it I really want? Then you figure out the steps how together.
Yeah.
But like, what is not working in my life that my life decided to shut down?
Right.
And to indicate to me that I'm not happy about something.
Right.
So to first open that conversation with yourself, like, what is it I want from life?
I love that.
And if I don't know, that's okay. So you got to start where you're at.
Right.
So
I
like,
love that. I respect
first,
that
I
so
know
much.
that I don't know.
Yeah, I love what you just said, because like I had this conversation with Shia after the podcast last week, and it was like, we were talking about different things in life and different. We were talking actually about different addictions, and I was trying to like justify these addictions. Like everybody needs it. Like everybody needs a cigarette once in a while. Everybody wants to look at something that you're not allowed to at some point, or everybody wants to, escape, or it's different things that people escape for an addiction. And he was saying that no problem, so it's okay. You're allowed to justify it, but the justifying it is already the results, is already the effect.
Right.
What's the cause?
Right.
And he gave me one of the biggest awarenesses in my life. I'm like, because he literally what you just said, like, what's the cause? Give it some space.
The
Why am I
is the solution?
Even correct?
What's the problem?
What's the problem?
Why are you running away from?
Right. Why am I even feeling the urge to do this and this right now?
Right.
and then make the decision what you want to do. But tap into that urge. Why do I have the urge to do this thing? Last question, anxiety. I think it's something that we all struggle on different levels. I learned to make peace with my anxiety. Like, I feel that my anxiety helps me in very big ways, even though certain things that I'm very uncomfortable with. Like, I know for a certain while I was like struggling a little bit with like dizziness, and it's very, very uncomfortable to struggle with dizziness, because like I'm potentially a showman and I don't want to feel dizzy in the middle of, I'm at a show and stuff like that. But I also noticed that how it saves me for so many things, how many shows I didn't go to because of it, or how many places I didn't visit, or how many days I took off to rest because of it. So I noticed how anxiety is literally here, like my friend, and every time it comes up, it's literally like knocking at my door. Hello, what's doing? I have this problem, and I want your attention. I need your help,
Right.
Ellie. Like, my whole life now is, my life is on steroids. Like, everything that I do is magnified, is bigger, better, greater, deeper. The feelings are deeper because I'm much more in tune. And part of it is because of my age. You know, I'm 26, and I learned so much, and I can't go back to a young 19-year-old self that's ignorant. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm trying to say that all these feelings and emotions that came out, they just made my life even better, because a good moment is so much better, and a bad moment might be sometimes worse, but at least I know how to handle with it. What do you make of all these emotions that come out, and specifically anxiety, which is something that a lot of people struggle? They're just worried about so many different things. How does one work
Right.
on
So
that?
anxiety is meant to protect yourself, and it's not a bad thing. Meaning
Mm-hmm.
it's a matter of how you cope with it.
For some people, it feels out of control.
Right.
So for this out
That's
of
when it's
control person,
extreme. That's
yeah,
when it's extreme. So first to understand the concept that
okay,
anxiety is there for you to protect you and to save you, because like what is going to drive you to do the right thing, so to say?
uh-huh,
It's like, okay, I'm cautious, I'm anxious. Like, is it going to work out? It's not going to work out.
right,
The problem is when it takes you over and you're driven fully by the anxiety and you only see the anxiety. It's all about, is it going to work out? It's not going to work
right.
out.
So you're thinking about going away for Shabbos. Sorry for interrupting.
Sure.
For me, it's like I want to go away for Shabbos, but between me and you remember how I listed the 7 problems?
Right.
I didn't list the 20 opportunities that can come out, right?
Exactly.
Like, I can find the shidduch over there, I can find a friend, the client, I can
Yeah.
find joy, I can have the biggest awareness, I can find good food and good people
Right.
and a good environment. And you're right, like, my mind didn't, in that moment that I spoke to you, I didn't for even 1 second see the positive things in
Yeah,
it.
so that definitely helps to see the positive and to see that this anxiety is only a small part I'm gonna
Right,
really enjoy there. But also it's like, okay, so what is it trying to protect me? So it wants to make sure I'm gonna be safe, I'm gonna be comfortable. Okay,
right,
I can manage that. I can be safe and comfortable. But then to realize that the over anxiety is just anxiety, and to see it for what it is.
right,
It became anxiety. It
right,
became like this thing that takes me over. So I can hold space for it. This thing takes me over. But so okay, thank you for coming. Like, thank you for being here. Sachakli trying
right.
to make sure I'm gonna be safe and protected. I'll be safe and protected.
Wow,
So to appreciate for what it is, Sachakli tries to help you, but not let it lead the boat.
absolutely.
You be in control of it, meaning not to let it fully overtake you.
Wow. Super powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I learned I learned a lot. I'm curious, the last question, if you can give a message to everybody listening, what would that message of awareness be?
Awareness. I'm very passionate about Hasidus, and I think Hasidus is very big. Like,
Yeah.
there's many different parts of Hasidus, and I feel people should find their cipher, their Rebbe, that they can connect,
Mm-hmm.
and it can open up a lot. It can open a lot. If you think psychology is deep,
Right.
like one cipher of Hasidus is
Really?
like 1,000 times more than the whole psychology.
Really?
And it's the DNA of your neshama, it's the DNA of how things actually work.
Right.
And you can find especially the ones who want to be
Yeah.
Hasidish,
Yeah.
like you can find your life answers there and your geschmack there. And
Really?
it's yeah, there's
I never
a
saw
lot.
it that way, to be honest. I don't know. Can I find over there more than what I can find in a book? Because that's where I connect. I can't. I'm not very good with Lucian Koidish.
A lot more.
A lot
And
more. You're saying.
there's
Many ones with touch.
Yeah, but not only that, there's many teachings on YouTube. There's many people,
That
I can
teach
give you a
Hasidus
reference,
Shurim on YouTube.
that
Can you
talk.
give me one shtickle Hasidus that talks about maybe mental health or meaning in life, something that you feel you connected to, that's interesting to share?
Yeah, so there's a big one of, I'll quote that, there's a famous question of Yedi and Bechira, right?
Okay.
Which is from the Rambam, that if Hashem knows everything,
Yeah.
then how come I have a choice?
Okay.
So the Ma'or Einayim gives an answer on that, which might be a little hard to comprehend, but it's not so hard at the same time.
Okay.
But it's more what we'll take out after. That he's saying that for Hashem, all is one.
Yeah.
Right? For him, you don't have the question whether it's Yediyah, whether it's Bechira, whether it's knowing or choosing.
Right.
Because for him, it all is one.
Right.
So then the only question you have is on the human, because for him, it's separate.
Oh, wow.
So he's saying, if you choose Hashem, then for you it also becomes one, because you become part of Hashem. But if you're disconnected from Hashem, then you don't even have Bechira, because it's your Bechira, your choice is a Mitzrayim. You think you're choosing.
Right.
You're not choosing. You're acting out of your trauma, out of your
Wow.
Mitzrayim. It's not choice. Choice,
Right.
the only choice is to connect to Hashem and to become one with Him.
Right.
But together, it takes many, many levels of being able to be in action,
Right.
while knowing at the same time that Hashem does everything.
Right.
Because naturally, if I'm in action, I want to be in control.
Right.
So to have the full passion of being in action, at the same time, having the full trust.
Wow.
And that takes, many levels of trust.
Right. Meaning being so deeply connected with yourself, but trusting in that moment.
Exactly. Because yourself is part of Hashem.
Exactly. That's when you're all in alignment.
That's when you're in alignment, exactly.
Very, very nice. Wow. So it is very deep. I love it. Oh, wow. Yeah, maybe I should start learning again. Hasidus Shurim.
Yeah, I can give you some good references, but definitely it opens a lot.
I think that the Baal Shem Tov was a lot about individualism, and today Hasidus is really very mainstream. Some call it like a kahila or an organization.
Yeah, unfortunately, which has its nice part of supporting each other, but
right.
it's lost its individuality.
Right.
And we don't know what the ikr and what the tofel is,
Right. Yeah, I know, like the shul where I daven, my roof is so inviting and accepting to me because he has a small kahila. You know what I'm saying? Like it's beautiful. But today, when you have a rebbe that has 10,000 hasidim, how do you feel connected to that rebbe that can potentially teach you?
Yeah,
things?
So it takes tefillah and it takes work to find your own connection to a sefer, to a rebbe, and to see what connects you, what brings you up closer to Hashem.
Right. Wow, amazing. Okay. I definitely have something. I have something that I'm taking out of here. We're going to learn Hasidus Shurim. Maybe you want to open a WhatsApp group and we'll soon have a shtickler?
I actually have one. I haven't updated it in a while, but
okay.
I started it.
Well, at least for the next week or so. We're going to post the group in the description if you don't mind. Nuchem, you got to do this. At least for me, for 1 week. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Nuchem, by the way. Thank you for giving your time, your space, your house, your office. Thank you, everybody, for listening and tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I want to remind you to please like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. Let me hear your feedback. I love hearing your feedback. If you want to get in touch with me, the link to my WhatsApp is in the description, or you can follow me on social media. The link to that is also in the description. And make sure to make it a better day for yourself and follow your own dreams. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and keep up your great work for the Young for Klal Yisrael towards Mashiach.
Thank you. Mashiach energy. Thank you. All right. Wow.